What is happening, Internet? J Gamer Dude here, and I'm looking through another list on CBR.com as I try to dunk on it as best as I can. But the thing is, I feel like I'm going to end up agreeing with it more than anything if the last video was anything to go by that I did on the 10 isekai that best deserve or that most likely to be modern classics or something like that, something along those lines. But here we have the 10 best manga with the worst anime adaptations, and let's just jump into it and actually have a look because I realize I've seen a lot of anime that have had terrible adaptations but were from very good manga. So let's just jump into it. Let's have a look. So the first one we've got on the list is Promised Neverland. Now you could argue that it doesn't deserve to be on the list because the first season was very, very good, but then the second season was very, very bad. So if you were to put both together, you could argue that it half deserves to, half doesn't deserve to be on here. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that they skipped over like the adaptation of the second season was so unforgivable that I feel like, yeah, you know what? It kind of does deserve to be on this list because of how unforgivable the actual adaptation was, how much was skipped, how little thought was put into things being put together, how good, how I was gonna say how good it didn't look, but rather how bad it actually looked. That's probably what I should have worded it as. So, interesting place to start from. Let's see how it goes from here because I haven't actually seen the rest of the list. But this is an interesting start to say the least. So far I'm kind of agreeing with it. Okay, Blade of the Immortal. Haven't seen it, can't speak to it, so probably better to skip. But I'm gonna keep my eye out for this one and actually put it on my watch list. If it is actually genuinely bad, I can kind of like rant about it a bit or something like that in like a future video. So can't speak to this one. Let's just kind of move forward. Okay, Junji Ito collection absolutely does deserve to be on this list. So Junji Ito is a famous horror mangaka, and his stuff is great. They're excellent. His manga are brilliant. It gives you the sort of the page turners, if you will, is what I like to call it, where you're so gripped you have to turn it to the next page, and you just don't know what you're looking for, what the villain is, what the bad guy is, what the actual evil, horrible thing is that is in each of his manga, no matter what you're kind of looking at, whether you're looking at like the insects in Gyor or, some of his more sort of famous works. But at the end of the day, the anime adaptation for this was absolutely terrible. It sucked. Even like the adaptation for Gyor by itself was bad, but Junji Ito collection just did not deserve to be um, how it was. It was not adapted well, and unfortunately, I think horror definitely gets shafted pretty bad. Like, if I were to talk about the worst anime that I've ever seen, quite a lot of them are going to be horror in genre, unfortunately. So they get shafted pretty hard, I think. So this absolutely does deserve to be on this list. So we're going down to pretty sort of like unknown territory that most people probably wouldn't even consider watching. So okay, now we're going into some jump. Soul Eater. Soul Eater absolutely got shafted. I want to say the first few episodes were good, but then beyond that, it kind of went downhill very quickly. It didn't adapt it up properly, which kind of sucks ass that it wasn't adapted accordingly. Again, an adaptation is you take the original, you pop into a new medium, you try and make advantage of those new things, and then you're kind of like, sweet, all done, nothing else to say here, right? But it, you don't change a bunch of things and the core idea of like what the original story was going for and turning it into some nothing that's all about just friendship. I think they did the main character and Death the Kid bad, probably the worst, but I digress. It definitely deserves to be on here, but the ordering feels a little bit off now. Where, like, yeah, sure, Soul Eater was a bad adaptation, but I would say I expected more from, Junji Ito than I did Soul Eater, to be completely honest. So I suppose it determines it depends on your expectation. I guess more the content of the list rather than like what order they're in is probably the better way to focus. Tokyo Ghoul. How do I even begin to describe this one? Tokyo Ghoul first season, I did like and enjoy. Um, it was okay at best. Second season, completely dropped the ball in every single way it was humanly possible because I couldn't follow Jack. The main character is broody, and from what I'm aware of, apparently the second season just did not adapt from the manga at all. And then we get season 3, which is Tokyo Ghoul Route A, which attempts to then correct the mistakes of season 2 by actually adapting the content of the manga. And I'm sitting there being like, hold on. You're not going to make a third season where you redo the second season and try to then do the thing you were originally supposed to do. What are you on about? Like, why would you do this? If you've massacred season 2, just leave it. But instead, they did do Route A and then Route A season 2, I think, as well. I don't know how further along they've gone, but I heard that Route A is okay, but I haven't bothered to watch it after season 2 just left me in utter confusion. I was like, I'm out. I mean, I will come back and rewatch it at some point, but not right now, I don't think. So, this absolutely does deserve to be on here. Akamiga Kiru. This one I actually liked and had fun with watching. I didn't take it seriously. I had no expectations for it, but apparently it was a very, very terrible adaptation. And I can't speak to it because I haven't read the original series, so I'm just going to take everyone's word for it. But as far as the show goes, as much as I want to say I liked it, but the thing is that I wasn't completely enamored by it either. Actually, I wouldn't even put this on the list. Well, okay. I guess it really depends. I wouldn't put this on the list, but hell, it's here. I actually don't even have much to say about it. Let's see. What does it say about it? Oh, okay, the ending. Okay, the ending. Yeah, they completely changed the ending from the manga. I completely forgot about that. I was like wondering why this was on the list. Completely changing the ending, right? To be honest, I actually kind of liked the ending because then at the time, killing off the main character felt like it was doing something new. But I guess looking back at it, probably wouldn't say the same thing now. But that's how it was. Like what, nearly 10? Well, actually, no, 10 years ago. Who would have thought? So I would definitely had a completely different mindset considering how much time has passed since. But it is what it is. I'm not going to talk too much into it because I don't think there's much else for me to say. Rosario and Vampire definitely deserves to belong here, being more of like a fan service series rather than how actually like badass the main character is in the manga, because they completely decked his character. And when I say decked, I mean like, oh god, yeah, no, they did the main character wrong badly enough, not to then bring in everything else that they did. I mean, yeah, there is some fan service, but there isn't as much as what there is in this series, in its adaptation rather. So, it is what it is. Okay, now I would say Berserk's adaptation was an absolute shame, and I would say that only applies to Berserk 2016, which got a second season, and it didn't deserve it. Nowhere in hell did this deserve it. Let's just leave it at that. 1997's adaptation did it so much better, and they should have kept going. But then they redid they redid the whole Golden Age arc as 3 movies in 2011. No wait, 2010, 2011, 2012, if I remember right. Or is 2011 to 2013. It was something like that, but even then that adaptation looked like dog water, so at the end of the day, Berserk deserved better. It is one of the greatest manga of all time. It's painful to think about. This absolutely, I'm not surprised that this wasn't number 1, but let's just see what else is on this list. Exam was a manga? You know what, with how bad Berserkers, I think Exam does actually deserve to be higher, because Exam is just absolutely Absolutely, it sucks ass. It sucks colonical irrigation so hard that it's not even funny. Wow, that is one way of describing it. But yeah, yeah. No, you know what? Exam does deserve to be higher than Berserk. Berserk was just a disappointment because of how good it could have been, and that genuinely hurts on the inside. But the fact that we got 1997 at least makes that a bit bearable. Exam just sucks. So apparently, it's a great manga. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Bad PS2 CGI. Because I'm agreeing with this list more than I'm disagreeing with it, which is kind of more of a disappointment on my part. Okay. Record of Ragnarok is an absolutely incredible manga. It's nowhere near as good as Berserk, but it gives you a very good, interesting story where you've got characters from myth to gods to like various types of myths and everyone fighting each other. It is great. It brings, some of the it brings in like flashbacks in a really good way where it doesn't feel too much like it's getting in the way. It's just some minor bits and pieces for each of the characters just to characterize them a bit, and then they start smashing each other's heads in. Record of Ragnarok, if I remember right, the adaptation looked like a slideshow essentially, a PowerPoint slideshow, and I would normally agree that yeah, that absolutely sucks and is definitely terrible and should never have happened. It does deserve to be on this list, but it doesn't deserve to be number one. I feel like Exam and Berserk, you can absolutely make arguments for Exam's absolute terribleness, or the fact that Berserk could have been so good, but ended up being so bad. So either of those could have been number one. Record of Ragnarok did not. It absolutely did not deserve to be terrible, and then if you wanted to go that far, you could have brought in, Way of the House Husband or something like that instead. But the actual idea of Record of Ragnarok is absolutely incredible, but it did not deserve to be number one. It could deserve to be on this list, but I'm struggling to put it onto this list if, say, something like Way of the House Husband wasn't on here. But hell, Rosario and Vampire did completely ruin the main character and add way too much fan service that didn't necessarily deserve to be in there. But then again, it wasn't necessarily a terrible show. Yeah, it didn't deserve. If it was going to be on this list, it would have been significantly lower. Yeah, it could have been a lot better, but again, it is a massive gulf between talking about things like um, Berserk and then Rosario and Vampire, and then you've got something like Record of Ragnarok, which probably should have been much lower on the list, if not on the list at all. Because there are so much more terrible adaptations as well. Like Elfen Lied was a terrible adaptation. They should have stuck more to the source material or added a better. Dead Man Wonderland's ending? If you're going to just judge it by ending alone, Dead Man Wonderland absolutely would have been deserved to be on here. But yeah, I guess that's just sort of going through the list, a couple of suggestions of making it better if I were to suggest it. But yeah, an interesting list. I kind of agree, but kind of disagree. So it just kind of leaves me in like sort of a damp position, I guess. But at the end of the day, that's what I think about the list. Let me know what you guys think about the list, the contents of the list, the stuff that I mentioned, and something else in between.